Set your expectations low. And prepare to be disappointed.
May 24th, Sony's State of Play is a semi-annual event where you see the slow and steady decline of gaming as a whole. With each passing year, we go further and further into the digital dark age. Concord was debuted with a 10-minute trailer of a lackluster hero shooter almost 10 years after the trend had died. I guess Sony didn't get the memo and they completely ignored what happened to Bandai with Gundam Evolution merely 1 year ago.
Ching Chong Big Bong fix my game.
Something wrong. Needless to say, the reception was less than stellar. The game trailer was ratioed into oblivion, a sign of what was to come. Despite the apparent lack of interest in said game, Sony announced an episode of Concord on Amazon Prime show called Secret Level, 2 weeks after announcing the game was being shut down.
What?
PlayStation's Concord to feature in Amazon Prime Secret Level, an episode dedicated to the beloved PlayStation Studio titles.
How can you do a video on a beloved title that just came out and nobody seems to like it? Oh well, guess that's gaming.
Sony was convinced that this game was going to be a massive success, with custom controllers.
Yes.
Major marketing campaigns.
Here's my review. Not gay enough.
You couldn't get away from Guardians of the Dollar Store Galaxy.
Yeah, that trailer, that moment is such a tiny slice of everything that we've been working on for years and years and years. We're excited for the game and for the IP to be, the game to be in people's hands, the IP to be in people's minds. I think I'm personally very excited for the IP for folks to delve into the Galactic Guide if that is something they choose to do, for these vignettes to come out on a weekly basis.
Computer says no.
Concord was made for the modern audience. Finally, a game for everyone. 16 characters to choose from, each one uglier than the last, with exquisite design choices ranging from fat gay robot to fat dumpy lesbian, and everyone's favorite, the black transsexual woman. Based on a real transsexual musician you've never heard of in your life.
Yes, it is. Oh my God. Can I just see them for a minute? Sure. Oh my God. Can I hold them?
Yes, sir. Did you design that game?
I'm in the game.
Oh, wow. Can I see it?
So yeah, there's a character, her name is Baz.
That's you?
She's a knife martial artist.
What?
And it's me. Yes.
Congratulations.
I'm so excited.
You know the game Grand Theft Auto 5?
Yes.
My good friend is one of the main characters.
Riveting.
Musician Mila Jam makes history as first playable black trans woman in a major studio video game.
Delicious. I can hardly hold back the wonton flu.
If you actually stop to read the bio of Baz, it sounds like something I would have saw on Tumblr literally circa 2011.
Ugh, good lord, gaming does suck, dude. Go outside.
Shockingly, the heavy focus on DEI, pronouns, and horrendously ugly character designs didn't win people over. It was wrapped up in a beautiful rainbow-colored bow, but the bigoted gamers refused to accept the gift that keeps on giving. Concord's gameplay consisted of the usual hero shooter tropes that have been done over and over again for years, if not a millennia. Outside of the progressive character designs, Concord had nothing new to offer gamers.
So I played the Concord beta for 5 minutes. Get this shit out of here. Embarrassing. Man, these devs are so lost. They're lost. Terrible.
And in this genre of gaming, the shooter lives and dies by its character design. If people aren't hot for the character's booties, you're not going to make any money. It's how life is. Piece it together. People are coomers. Judging from the senior concept artist at Firewalk Studio, she was having quite the Twitter tantrum.
Pretty soon, these weirdos will have no games to buy at all.
Wow, you mean I could play Nothing or Concord? I guess everybody took Nothing. There are no good games now. You get one once a year at best. And consoles are now going to start costing $700 plus. How can Sony justify the PlayStation Pro's price when one of its major games was Concord? There's nothing that can convince me to give them $700 plus another $180 for a disc drive if I happen to have hard copies of games.
Get stuffed.
Goodbye.
Artist at Firewalk Studios also did her own rendition of Evangelion, and this should be seen as a criminal offense, if not an international incident.
Uncle Roger sad now.
Jesus Christ, Stu. Look at these character designs. If I wanted to see a fat, angry black woman, I'd watch a police body cam video and call it a day. What do you mean the microphone's on?
On July 18th, the open beta for PS5 and PC was dropped. If you pre-ordered the game, you would have gained early access to the beta. The game was plagued with bugs, glitches, stutters, overall poor performance. Concord promised no paid season passes, no paid skin. The people were beating down the doors to play the game. At least that's what they thought would happen.
You own Concord. Concord doesn't own you. No battle pass, folks. You own Concord. Concord doesn't own you.
Not a bad deal if I say so myself. Please, I want to die.
In reality, only 1,200 people signed up to play. This massive failure showed the game was dead before it even launched. Netizens quickly ran to social media to dance on Sony's grave.
The eagerness to grave dance on unpopular games has become a bad habit.
The phrase pinnacle of AAA slop was a scathing review of the 10-minute launch trailer. Many called them the bargain bin Guardians of the Galaxy. A cinematic trailer that highlights the by-the-numbers character tropes and story beats that appeal to only the most hardcore of consumers. Or, as Friedrich Nietzsche would call them, the last man.
Haters! Just picked up a physical version of this bad boy so I can play forever.
The irony.
This is fine. What are you doing? I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently. That's okay. Things are gonna be okay.
Many content creators began dunking on this mid-game because it was finally safe to take a unfiltered dump on unchecked wokery. At the core of the issue was a generic shooter that put more effort into representation than making a unique experience. And people are wise to that now more than ever.
Concord's beta early access is this weekend, as was already planned, July 12th through 14th. And then there's going to be another weekend next weekend, July 18th to 21st. However, you guys might recall that this original weekend was for people that pre-ordered, and then people would get 5 codes to share with friends, or I guess 4 codes to have a full team of 5. And then today they just announced, no, it's going to be open to everyone with PlayStation Plus account. Not good. At least from a he asked, like, is this because pre-orders were low? Obviously. I mean,
yeah, this reeks of Dreams early access.
Right. That's right. What Dustin's referring to, people might remember, is that when Dreams was in early access, they were like, we're only going to sell a limited amount of copies, and then we're going to shut it off so we can keep it keep it within the realm of reason so we can figure things out. And then they never even reached that number. And so it was always on sale. And that wasn't what was supposed to happen, but it boded poorly for the game. And this doesn't bode well for Concord, although I think that Concord's only chance ever was to get people playing it and to get their hands on and with it and see if they enjoy it. And so I don't think this is necessarily bad for the game. It's just bad optically, but most people won't even notice probably that it wasn't always this way. I do feel bad for you if you pre-ordered it specifically to get in. That kind of sucks. A little bit of a bait and switch.
It didn't take long for the internet to dig up info and quickly learn that Firewalk Studios was made up of former Bungie, Respawn, Activision, and BioWare workers. Also, netizens decided to start looking at what the developers were liking on Twitter. The lead character design of Concord was seen promoting and liking tweets that demand white people acknowledge their privilege and that the judicial system is basically white supremacy.
I can't. It's gotta be around 2020. I knew it.
Thinking that all white people are unconsciously racist is the same as thinking that all black people are unconsciously lazy. This is an oversimplification. The sentiment being expressed is that whites must acknowledge their privileged position and then actively work for equality. It will be hard in confronting work, but if we don't, we're complicit.
Oh my god.
I'm not accusing you, myself, or all whites of being Jim Crow racist. I also don't think anyone hearing it should immediately take it away as that. Whites in America have always had an advantage in our social economical justice system just because we're white. Doing nothing and saying, well, I'm not racist, allows it to persist unchecked. We need to acknowledge the advantages we had and use it to do others help and pursue equity and justice, and needs to become the new I'm not racist. Using your privilege to erode was very privileged.
The usual. Honestly, it goes on for way too long, and he pretty much ends up talking to himself, but you get the picture. It just keeps going. In July, one of the sexually dubious devs at Firewalk Studio, who cares what it is, studio, allegedly demanded that people call them by the pronoun professor, which in and of itself is stupid, because professor is a noun, not...
Oh, Christ. I was using my brain again. I was being bigoted.
Firewalk Studios, the studio behind the impending Concord flop, has serious internal issues. One of the devs, Lisa Brown, came out as non-binary and forced everyone at the company to call her professor. She would regularly have meetings with cheesy phrases like teaching and learning with the professor.
I'm on my land. We're both in America, which used to be a good country, until they started letting people like you do whatever you want.
She pushed extreme politics, hated guns, and wanted unvaxxed staff members fired. This is just part of why Concord is such a delusional mess. I found a lot out more about this studio, just awaiting confirmation before going public with lots of other stuff.
Dude, can my pronouns be big dick energy?
Since I don't have access to Smash JT's contacts, I cannot 100% confirm this all to be true. But with how stupid progressivism has become in literally the last 4 years, I could totally see this being a thing. I mean, the game speaks for itself. The senior concept artist at Fireworks Studios has a history of criticizing gamers if they don't like a game made for the modern audience.
Silent Hill 2 is my favorite game of all time, and right-wing fans complaining about the way Angela looks in the remark is telling. We are talking about a character who survives sexual assault like this, often gain weight to cover up as much as possible. You don't even have to ever argue with those people. They tell on themselves immediately. These right-wingers are showing they do not care about anything below the surface level and are unable to understand the media they consume.
Lady, it's a remake. Lady, why does the new chick look fat and stupid?
You know, we're not here for realism, baby girl. There's a literal gray fog and monsters pulling people away into nothingness. And you're like, I need my victims of sexual crimes to be literally like me, for real, for real. Despite the fact it was clear no one was interested in Concord, and if they talked about it at all, it was to make fun of it, gaming journalists still swung in to rescue the fair maiden.
First look, PlayStation's Concord is breaking new ground in how live service games tell a story. Ka-chow! Built by Destiny and Call of Duty veterans, Concord is much more than its quippy trailer would have you believe.
No, it really wasn't.
He's a monster.
Concord, the big preview. I've spent 3 hours with Concord. Don't make your mind up on it just yet. Destiny shooting with all the new approach and storytelling for live service titles.
When you gotta put live service in it, that already tells me it's a piece of trash. And so are you.
I won't force you to watch this boring video preview. Maybe just a little bit. You deserve it. You've been very bad today.
Or whatever.
Hey, Mara. Don't joke about something like this.
Our next job is somewhere with less scaffolding.
No scaffolding. Zero scaffolding. I promise.
We were apart for so long. I thought I'd never feel your fiery embrace again.
You sound ridiculous.
IGN thought Concord was a game changer.
Concord isn't the most innovative or content-heavy hero shooter you could play, but with such fantastic competitive gameplay, 16 compelling characters to master, and 12 well-designed maps, it's got the makings of something that could go the distance.
The poor thing had asthma and a club foot. It barely made it down the road before it knocked its teeth out.
After playing Concord for a few hours, we're excited for more of the action, which feels like a mix of Destiny and Overwatch, even if you're wary of the team's emphasis on lore and storytelling paying off in the multiplayer-only game. It's hard to complain about hero shooter fatigue when Concord looks this good. Players seem to like Concord, but the $40 price tag has led to tepid first weekend on PC. What happened to Sony's Concord? Is it actually selling badly, or are we just reading the numbers wrong? When questions of this nature crop up, we ask a bunch of professional industry analysts to explain how to shoot our cat with a water gun. Be gone, demon!
I think the kids call this
gaslighting. Nuclear levels of shilling. Everyone can see through it. Bookmarking this for when the game flops. LOL. It's an abject failure. Over the course of the beta weekend, Concord was already shaping up to be a heavyweight hero shooter. We could easily see competing with this genre's giants.
Push Square, a PlayStation publication.
Concord is not the disaster the discourse around it would lead you to believe. This online first-person shooter, a debut effort from Sony Studio Firewalk, has outrageous production values, I was pissing blood, a fair business model, and genuinely entertained gameplay on a loop. Its biggest issue is the lack of identity. There's no denying the developer has been heavily inspired by Guardians of the Galaxy, and while the title does genuinely try to blaze its own trail, that'll largely be its downfall.
Conclusion, Concord's a 7 out of 10. Don't ask any questions, this game is great. It's got some pretty crap characters. Not especially original, and uncertain future lore adds very little to experience.
Those are some major cons, bro.
It's actually funny reading this after the game was pulled, because it's kind of like reading the journalists say, the game's amazing, it's fantastic, sure some stuff sucks, it blew my tits off, and then 3 weeks later it's gone. Kotaku thought having the devs comment about the audience rejecting the game would help somehow in some bizarre universe, but that's usually how Kotaku rolls. Concord devs respond to everyone hating on their trailer.
For these vignettes to come out on a weekly basis, you'll start to fall in love with the depth of the characters. That's something that you learn week to week. That's their personalities will unfold, their relationships will unfold for you, their backstories. None of that is something you can get in a tiny little slice of it. But that's a start.
Sounds like they want you to develop Stockholm Syndrome while playing Concord.
There's something there. So I'm glad folks watched it. I'm glad they participated, and I can't wait for them to see more, to see everything that is there.
Oh, maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's clinical depression.
We have a team that is uniquely skilled at building very immersive and fluid gameplay that just feels tremendous in the player's hands. The second they pick up the controller, the game just comes to life, and every action is responsive. And I've been a player of these games my whole life. These games are what I love to play, and I know that it's all about how does it play, right? And so that's for me, that's the moment. I want players to come into the beta. If they don't like it after the beta, that's fine. But I think the initial reaction is all about how does it actually play in your hands?
Yeah, like shit.
The way this dude's describing it to me, I would assume that this is the new 2025 Ducati V4S. But in all actuality, it's Concord, the game that lost 95% of its player base within 1 week. These testimonials from the game's devs themselves might have worked had they the charisma and charm of Uncle Baby Billy.
You should be ashamed!
Let's give Concord a chance. Don't follow the crowd. Give Concord a try. It's a shame because Concord has become the current target for gaming derision. That dodgy trailer turned off one wave of people, and the character designs turned off everyone else. Now, every comment section YouTube dislike bar is filled with how much Concord sucks just because the collective wisdom of the masses has decided it does before even getting a chance to play it. It's come so far from its cinematic trailer just 2 months ago and convinced me it's more than leftover slot from the MCU chum bucket. If we care about good games and not just parroting what random influencers say during the reveal, Concord's clever character moments and unique hero shooting should have earned it some time to work out the kinks.
Listen, don't make blanket assumptions about anything unless we, the gaming journalists, tell you to do so.
By the way, the beta closed on July 21st, and the world forgot Concord existed till it launched again on August 23rd, or as the developers now know it as, Judgment Day. Sony did everything in their power to make Concord a hit, even having first-party studios on Twitter pretend to not only love the game, but to be playing it religiously, as tweets from Naughty Dog, Insomniac, and others have shown.
Calling all free gunners, congrats to Fireworks Studio on the release. Play Concord. We're playing Concord with our friends on the Ben Plays. Insomniac Games. Ben Studios to celebrate the launch of the PlayStation Concord, and Ben devs are taking it to the galaxy and streaming it live now.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Along with the coordinated efforts of gaming journalist sites like Kotaku, IGN, Game Informer, VGA, etc., Concord launched to a whopping 600 concurrent players on Steam. Ugh! Eat it, chuds. The game's failure became an internet-wide spectacle. The terrible performance stirred panic amongst the studio heads as they rushed to remove LGBTQ tags off of the Steam
sales page in hopes of, I guess it would bolster some player counts.
Yeah, weird.
LGBTQ and political tags removed and blacklisted. The developer made a big deal about the game being for modern audiences, all 600 of them, but for some reason demanded Steam to not only remove these 2 tags, but to also blacklist them, plus any similar tags. It's too late. People already know that this game had a clear agenda. I mean, the characters speak for themselves.
Exactly. They ran in there thinking they'll do like, oh, this is for all those progressive people. We've got the game for you. And then they found out the hard way most progs don't play games. Well, they play Overwatch and then they
watch Overwatch-related adult content later in the day, and then they beat their meat furiously. I'm not going to give you a play-by-play because it would get me in trouble. Catboy Ranch.
At this point, every game on Steam was doing better than Concord, even Redfall. That's a game that Microsoft shat out about a year ago, and it still had more people at launch than Concord. In fact, DSP was seeing more success than Concord was, which is crazy to say out loud.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
The world is burning. Let's
memester bait.
In spite of the clear lack of interest 99% of the world had in Concord, PlayStation loyalists began gaslighting themselves into thinking the game was godlike, and it was so good they couldn't put it down. I'm not joking, I'm for real.
Future update, Concord has me completely hooked. I haven't even thought about playing Wukong tonight. That's how dope this is. Shout outs to Ghostina Garage for a great few games. PlayStation Share. I really cannot stress enough just how utterly perfect Concord is. The negativity this game received before even release was one of the biggest travesties in gaming. I feel particularly responsible and it sickened me, TBH. I hope so much it succeeds and folks give it a chance. The sun will come up tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar. Tomorrow. We'll play Concord tomorrow.
Oh, wait. By August 23rd, the developers had gone from damage control to scorched earth with gamers.
Combine that with a dev who doesn't care Talentless freaks didn't like the game. It's Concord's release day. I'm so insanely proud of the team and what they and we have accomplished. A labor of love like nothing else. Been playing it so much since early access started a few days ago, and I'm so excited for it to be available to everyone. And I'm so honored to have had this be my first AAA game with a huge learning experience. Lots of struggles, but I'm glad to have gone through them. Time to go play. I'm so sorry this had to be your first. I do not believe it is you or any of the other devs' fault that this game has performed so poorly. I can tell that a lot of effort was put into completing this game. It just came at the wrong time and genre. I don't really care. It was a huge labor from a lot of insanely talented people making an awesome game. Why would I care? A bunch of talentless freaks hating on it. I'm sure having fun playing it, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. Talentless freaks? I actually came to drop some positive criticism, but give it. Clearly based on the game, you're the one with no talent.
Hello, police. I'd like to report a murder. Yes, it was Tuggernut. He took a massive shit all over Xander's head, and I don't know how he will recover from this.
The lack of maturity from that game developer in that post was just the beginning. It's clear Fireworks Studios hired a majority of progressive dickholes. He did the adult thing by hiding comments and demanding $8. He thought that he was owning the chuds, and I quote. But much like socialism working, it's all a fantasy in his mind. He was soon easily overwhelmed by the massive hordes of people fed up with games like Concord and devs like him. So he was forced to hide his profile. A tale as old as time. The senior concept artist had similar choice words for these bigots that didn't like Concord.
I was going to DM you after this, but the site makes me pay to do that. So at the risk of getting dogpiled, I'm just going to say this here. A lot affected the art side of Concord, including designs by committee, failure of some leadership to listen to the arts team, etc. The character concept arts team, including myself, is going through an extremely difficult time emotionally. And some of the team no longer want to work in games, designs, characters, yada yada yada, or even do art anymore after this. Because of this. Posts like yours, though understandable, are unfortunately ill-timed. None of us know which way the wind will blow with the studio. We are worried, sick, and terrified of our future. Not only that, but we have been shouldering the brunt of the emotional labor as the executive directors dodge most of the play.
I find it hard to believe that she did not have a strong hand in making sure every woman in here looked like a dude.
Damn Aerosmith. Dude looks like a lady.
Even though the developers were outed as questionable individuals with obvious political biases, this didn't stop the progressives on Twitter from trying to shift all blame to Sony, the big bad corpos, for the game bombing critically and commercially. It was then revealed that Concord was a project that had been in early development as far back as 2016 and costing well over $100 million to produce.
PlayStation's Concord appears to have made $1 million. The issue is that Concord was not some small indie project, but that one that took Firework reportedly 6 to 8 years to develop. The exact budget is unknown, estimates at around $100 million, but there's no firm source to that. Even half of that could be $50 million in loss currently, with essentially no current room for improvement. So you can see where the 25,000 units essentially are coming from. That multiplied by 40, well, that's just $1 million in revenue. If you want to compare that to, say, an actual PlayStation hit like Spider-Man 2, that game sold 11 million units by last count, and that would be around $770 million in revenue.
By this point, things were bad. So bad, developers started handing out free Steam codes to boost player numbers.
I'll be dropping some Steam codes for Play Concord this weekend, starting now. Squad up.
Sony had a program where if you traded in a game, any game, you could get a copy of Concord for free from August 5th to September 1st.
It's over. We are screwed.
September 3rd rolled around and it was over. Sony euthanized Concord like an unwanted elderly cat that pisses all over your carpet. His name is Philip.
Refunds for PlayStation tourists, PlayStation Direct purchases may take 30 to 60 days to appear in your bank statement if your original payment source was unavailable. The purchase amount will be refunded to your PSN wallet. Once refunded, players will no longer have access to the game. No, really? We'll keep you updated, and thank you again for all you free gunners who have joined us in the Concord galaxy.
In less than 2 weeks, Concord was officially dead. Within hours of Sony's public statement, the Concord player count plummeted to double-digit numbers, and all marketing for Concord ended. It was memory hold, like it never happened. In a last-ditch effort to platinum the game,
Concord players were now throwing themselves off of maps as quickly as possible in a desperate attempt to unlock the shooter's platinum trophy before it goes offline.
Within the death of Concord came endless amounts of copium from journalists and professional victims on Twitter.
I just absolutely hate that Chuds will take this as a win, and it will embolden them to be even worse. I hate it so much!
This dude has a show no one watches. He is the poster child of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Changed my mind.
If you think Concord failed because of diversity, you're as unqualified to talk about game industry as the executive currently running it into the fucking ground.
Well, you're running your YouTube channel in the ground, so I guess it takes one to know one,
This was the character design for Amari before the professor and the rest of the neurodivergent cast at Firewalk Studios decided to redesign and reimagine the character for modern audiences. As you can see, the new Amari doesn't even look like a woman. It looks like a linebacker from the New York Giants decided to put on some blue lipstick. Look at the size of this character. I'm supposed to believe a fat black woman is doing military ops. Let me tell you something, as a man who grew up around fat black women, the only thing they were good at was putting sugar in soup and collapsing from diabetes.
Stop him! Concord's death offers a bleak look at gaming's future. After 8 years of development, Sony pulled the plug on Concord today, just 2 weeks. Fans loved it, but seemingly not enough. Is the future of the industry blockbuster or bust? There was no toxicity in the fan base, and I quote,
Girl, there was no fan base. I would read more of this Wired article to you and point out some stupid stuff, but they wanted me to pay for it, and I'd rather lay in bed with the Wutan flu than pay you.
Concord didn't fail because of woke, but because it's boring. Like everything about it is bland, unfinished. Deadlock is way more style and charm already.
Deadlock was made by Valve. These are people that have an idea of what the hell gamers want. But let's just be real here. Woke did kill Concord. For the fact that the character designs were so focused on representation and body positivity. Hero shooters live and die by their character design. And for as much as the gaming industry wants to LARP, there is a market for ugly people in gaming. Like everybody wants to see ugly, fat supermodels. It really doesn't have a market. The failure of Concord and Dustborn are proof of these facts. People aren't interested. We all want fantasy, not reality. But frankly, I'm all for it. Keep pumping out failures like this till the industry crashes. We need it. On September 10th, Sony added insult to injury by forcefully deleting copies of Concord off of players' consoles, in a move that only highlights how much I hate digital downloads. You will own nothing and like it is the future, apparently. Frankly, Sony didn't want anyone to have a copy of this game, so they could create their own servers and play it, or horror of horrors, improve the game. Am I right? At the end of the day, a failed shooter is nothing new. When Lawbreakers died a rat's death, the gaming industry didn't cry out in agony. No one screamed, pissed, and moaned. Nobody cared. And maybe it's because the game didn't have enough body positivity and trans representation. Makes you think. Some say Sony will bring Concord back after it's been retooled. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. Maybe Concord is worth more as a tax write-off to Sony at this point. With the weakness of the Japanese yen, companies really cannot afford to take massive flops like this. For many, when Sony moved its HQs from Japan to California, that was the end of the PlayStation brand as we all knew it.
No, not the epilog. Still plot. Still plot.
Just when I think it's over and I can go outside and play, more information came out. Colin Moriarty was contacted by someone who worked at Concord. What he had to say about Concord itself was far worse than anyone ever imagined. The original assumption was Concord lost Sony $100 million. Then the rumor was $200 million. Colin's contact says that the figure was more around the $400 million mark. I'll just let him explain, and I'll chop it down a bit to save you and I time in this epilogue.
About $400 million to make, soup to nuts. Sony put most of that money in, and it is not only so, because we had kind of said, like, this must be Sony's biggest loss ever on a game, and it is. It's the biggest game Sony's ever released from a budgetary standpoint from the first party or second party. So let that sink in.
It's crazy.
And it's totally unintuitive. There are games that are in development right now at Sony first and second party that are more expensive than this. But as of the games that have come out so far, so think about like Spider-Man 2 and so on and so forth. We know The Last of Us Part 2 cost $220 million. Spider-Man 3 is going to cost about $350 million. This game costs more than that. And they lost all of it. The game is nowhere near being done. It's in a horrible position. And then Sony buys the team. The idea behind this was, and the term apparently verbatim had been used, that Concord is the future of PlayStation. They had such major ambition for this game that it was referred to internally as a Star Wars-like project for Sony. There was, and I think we can kind of get this vibe from just the nature of the people making it and kind of the way the game reads and all that, a toxic positivity vibe. You weren't allowed to say anything, apparently internally, about this game, about how like something's wrong with it, character designs are not right. Big things to take away. $400 million loss. The game was in horrible shape as of 18 months ago before release. Not even monetization, no onboarding, most content not even there. The game was in such bad shape at that point that they spent the budget of it again in urgent outsourcing to get the game finished from all of these different angles over an 18-month period. Internally, the game was considered part of the future of PlayStation with heavy cross-media references.
A Kotaku journalist chimed in to basically confirm most of Colin's story.
I can corroborate the part about toxic positivity. Some sources I've spoken with blame the head in the sand mentality carried over from the studio's Bungie roots. A sense the game would come together because the team was too good to fail. And I'll have more next week. It seems like this story's just gonna drag on for a good long while.
Final thoughts. Toxic positivity and blind wokery does not a good video game make.
Africanga sucks ass.